Okay, so today we'll be doing a new paper, that is Physics O Levels May June 2024, paper 1, variant 1. So let's start with question number 1. A measuring cylinder contains a water that is placed on a top pan balance. An object is placed into the measuring cylinder. What is the mass and what is the volume? So it's very easy. For mass, there is if you subtract these two readings of the pan balance, you'll get the mass, because what we need to do is we need to find the mass of an object. See, in the first thing, when the object is not placed, it is 20 grams. When an object is placed, it's 54 grams. If you subtract them together, you're going to get 34 grams. That's the mass. And for the volume, you need to subtract the readings of the two measuring cylinder. At the start, it is 7, and then it is 17. If you subtract them together, you'll get 10. So your answer is C. For question number 2, it says which quantity is a vector quantity, distance is a scalar quantity, force is a vector quantity, mass is a scalar quantity, speed is a scalar quantity. So B is the right answer. The table shows the distance traveled by the car in each 2 seconds time interval during the 12-second period of its journey. Which statement describes the motion of the car moving at a constant speed from 0 to 4 seconds followed by non-uniform acceleration? If we see from the graph, for the first 2 seconds it is traveling 10-meter distance. For the next 2 seconds it's again traveling the distance of 10 meters. So it means, since it's traveling the equal distance, it means that it is traveling at a constant speed, and afterwards it's covering more distance, so it's a non-uniform acceleration. So A is the right answer. Why not B? It says when moving at a constant speed from 0 to 4 and then non-uniform, then uniform acceleration. It's not a uniform acceleration. If it would have been uniform acceleration, then the intervals between each of the distance should be equal. And in C it says it is at rest at 0 to 4. No, it's not at rest. It's traveling some distance, so it's not at rest. D is also wrong, because it is again saying that it is at rest from 0 to 4. Question number 4 says two cubes x and y have the same mass, but the length of the side of x is twice that of y. What is the value of the ratio? Okay, the first thing that you need to know is since they have the same mass, so the ratio of the volume of y over volume of x will give you the density of x over y, because they are inversely proportional to each other. So x, the length of the side x is twice that of y. So if x is like sorry, if the length of y is, let's suppose, small x, so the volume will be x cube, and if it is like twice, so it will be 2x cube, and if you solve it, it is going to be x cube over 8x cube. Subtracting them together, you're going to get 0.125. 1 over 8 is 0.125. You can divide with your calculator. Okay. Question number 5 says an object slides down a frictionless slope as shown. As the object presses on a surface, the surface pushes back on an object. In which direction does the surface pushes back on an object? So that's very easy. It is always perpendicular to the surface. A car traveling on a straight road brakes and then comes to stop. Which row gives the expression for calculating the thinking distance and gives a variable that affects a thinking distance? Right. Expression for calculating thinking distance is stopping distance minus braking distance, because we have equation that is stopping distance is equals to thinking distance plus braking distance. So if you subtract this braking distance from stopping distance, you will get the thinking distance. So the thing which is going to affect the thinking distance is speed of car. load does not affect the thinking, so that is D. An unstretched spring of length 15 is stretched by 4 centimeter when a mass of weight 6 Newton is suspended on it. The spring does not exceed the limit of proportionality. What is the total length of the spring when the weight of suspended mass is 3 Newton, right? First of all, you will use F is equals to kx to find spring constant. When F was 6, your extension was 4. I'm not converting it into newtons, sorry, meters, because it's a P1, so we don't need to convert that into meters. So 6 divided by 4 is your K. That is going to give you 3 over 2. Now you will use this F is equals to 3 over 2, and the value of value of Newton is given, right? Okay, so force is given 3 Newton now, so I'm going to use 3. So 2 will go and multiply with this, and 3 will get divided, so your x will be equals to 2. So your extension is 2. Since he is asking for the total length of the spring, so 15 was already the unstretched length, so adding 2 into it, it's D, 17. Let's move on to the next question. It says, which statement describes the moment of a force above the pivot are correct? So let's see what is our, just a minute. Okay, in question number 8 says, which statement describes the moment of a force above the pivot are correct? The moment of a force is measured of a turning effect of a force. Yes, that's correct. Moment of force is equals to force into perpendicular distance from the pivot. That is also correct. The moment of force is equals to the force times pressure on the pivot. That's wrong. So it's A. In question number 9, 4 objects have identical shapes but different distribution of mass. The center of gravity of each object is shown by the dot G. Which object is most stable? The one which has a lowest center of gravity, which means location of the center of gravity is lower to the base. So you can see in C part it is very close to the base, so that's your answer. In question number 10 it says, an object of 5 kg is pushed up a slope at a steady speed of 2 meters per second. Which calculation gives the change in gravitational potential energy from the bottom to the top? So the change in gravitational potential energy can be calculated using mass is given, height is given, G is 9.8, is using 9.8, so that's going to be B, mgh, because you know the gravitational potential energy has a formula mgh. In question number 11 it says, what is the work done against the gravity? That's the same thing. Work done against gravity is actually the gain in potential energy. So since it's moving 1.5 meter up, so we'll be using 60 as a mass, 9.8 as a G, and 1.5 as a height. When you times them all together, you're going to get C as an answer, 880. Which method of producing electricity does not involve a turbine? It's a solar cells. Every other one requires a turbine to move a generator. The input power of a lamp is 6 watts. The lamp wastes 2.7 joules of energy in 3 seconds. What is the efficiency? Since in 3 seconds we need to find out what is the input power, so we need to input energy, sorry, that is going to be E is equal to PT. Power is given 6, we need to times it with 3, that is going to be 18 joules, and out of 18 joules 2.7 is wasted, so useful will be then 18 minus 2.7, that is going to be 15.3, and I'm going to divide that with total input times 100, that is going to give you D as an answer, which is very efficient, although it don't seem like this much efficiency of the lamp, but still, because the question gives you the reading, so you need to rely on that. A camera is taken under water and left to the depth of 8 meters. Atmospheric pressure is given, density is given. What is the total pressure acting on the camera? Total pressure, it says. First of all, we need to find out the pressure due to the water. That is going to be pressure is equals to rho gh. Rho is for density, so that's 1000 times 8 times 9.8, and then you add atmospheric pressure into it, because it says total pressure, right? So A and B are wrong because they are already coming below the atmospheric pressure, which is wrong. So if you calculate from this equation, you will get to D. In an example of the particles in the fixed position, ice in the ice cube, yes, ice is in fixed position. Let's see the other ones. Water in the lake, that cannot be. Air in the water vapor in the atmosphere. Rest are all like gases or the liquid. The only solid is this one, because solid have the particles that are in fixed position. A gas expands slowly and its temperature remains constant. What happens to the gas particles? They move further apart and their average speed decreases. Since the temperature remains constant, so their average speed should not be affected, that should remain unchanged. So the only thing which is uh, going to give you the answer is C, because temperature, if you define temperature is actually the average speed of the particles. Since temperature remains constant, so average speed of the constant remains constant. 17, it says the air in each of the four syringes is slowly compressed so that the temperature of the air stays constant. The volume before and after the compression in each syringe are given in the table. The air in the all four syringes is initially at the same temperature. Which syringe shows the smallest pressure change? Smallest pressure change is going to be the one that is going to give you the smallest, like less change in the volume. If you see, this volume is decreased 5 times, so pressure will increase 5 times. This is volume has been halved, so the pressure will be doubled. This is 8 times, so pressure will be 8 times. This is 4 times, so pressure will be 4 times. So the only one is B. Rest are all greater than half the value. The temperature of the why I'm taking this, because volume is inversely proportional to pressure. If volume is decreasing by how many times, the pressure will increase by that much times. The temperature of the substance is measured with a liquid in glass thermometer. Which physical property changes so that the temperature can be measured? So that is very easy. Length of the thermometer is not, mass of the liquid is not, specific equation is not, it's always the volume of the liquid. The mercury expands, and then we read out our reading. In 19 it says the boiling and evaporation are the different processes. Which statement is correct? Boiling occurs at a surface only, that's wrong. Evaporation only occurs when the temperature of the liquid is higher enough, that's wrong. Evaporation does not change the temperature of the liquid, that's wrong again. When the boiling liquid is heated, its temperature remains constant, yes, that's it. because boiling, evaporation, they all occur at fixed temperature. A glass beaker contains water. When the center of the base of the beaker is heated, a convection current is set up. Which statement explains this? The evaporation of the water causes the water molecules to rise to the surface. Uh, that's not evaporation. The expansion of the water molecule causes them to rise to the surface. That's not. The water above the heat source rises because it becomes less dense. Yes, that's correct answer. Let's see the D1. The water at the side falls because it becomes less dense. No, that becomes more dense. 21. It says a metal is supplied. Hot meal is supplied in a container made up of shiny metal foil. Why does the container helps to keep the food hot? So the container traps air which increases convection. The foil is a poor thermal conductor. No, that's not. Shiny metals is a good absorber. No, they are poor emitters. This is correct because we don't want this energy to be emitted outside. So the poor emitter will help this to keep warmer for longer time. For 22, it says which quantity is defined as number of wavelengths passes through the point per second. That's always frequency. Number of waves passing through a point per second. The plane mirror formed an image of an object which characteristic of an image is formed. Size should be same. We always see a plane mirror ourselves, and plane mirror we see seems to be the same size as an object. So our size is same in the image as well as we have, and it's virtual because we cannot take it on the screen. Now let's move on to 24. A ray of light strikes the surface at a glass block at an angle of incidence 45. The refractive index of glass is this. What is the angle of refraction inside the block? Okay, so this is going to be n is equals to sin I over sin r. Since n is given 1.8, sin 45, and we need to find sin r, we're going to take this to the other side. This is sin 45 divided by 1.8, and then you need to take sin inverse of this. That is going to give you the r, right? So if you use a calculator, you'll get 23 as an answer. The diagram shows the ray of light passes through the converging lens. It says converging lens. This one is diverging because it's rather than going straight, it's going away, right? This one is converging because it converges in again. This is again diverging. It should go this way, but it's diverging. That is also diverging, so it's only B. Okay, X and Y are the two ends of the visible spectrum. Which of the statement is correct? All the light travels at the same speed in the prism. No, they all travel at a different speed. That's why they are, you can say, they're separated. The light at X has a low frequency than the light at Y. Yes, because they have high wavelength, so they have low frequency. Frequency and wavelengths are opposite to each other. It's red normally at X, so X has the greatest wavelength but a lowest frequency. Which component of the electromagnetic spectrum are used to communicate from the remote control to the television and from the earth to satellite? It's very easy. From remote it is infrared, from earth to satellite it's microwave. You might have studied in your electromagnetic spectrum. A student claps his hand in front of the wall and hears an echo. He claps at the same moment. He hears the echo of the previous clap. Another student starts the stopwatch on the first clap and stops it on the 11th clap. The reading of the stopwatch is 4 point this, and the sound speed of sound is what is the distance x between the student and the wall, because since it's going to be like 10 total distances that is going to count down, so I'm going to divide time by 10. So I'm going to get time for 1, which is 0.94, and then I'm going to use v is equals to 2x over t, which is the formula of echo. Speed is 320, times is 0.94, and then you need to divide this by 2 as well. So it is going to give you the distance of B. Now why did I take 10? Because it says it stops on 11th clap, so it means on the second clap uh, actually the sound has traveled distance of the first clap, so we'll be taking 10 claps. Okay, 29, it says a compass is placed close to a strong magnetic pivots as shown this. What type of magnet is a copper? So what is the pole X? That's very easy. It's always a permanent magnet. So B, A and B are wrong, and X is the north because it always travels from north to south, so the compass will point out towards this, so it is going to be C. In 30, it says plastic and wool are the insulating material. The sample of plastic and wool are rubbed together. They cause the transfer of electron, which shows the direction of the electron transfer and the final charge on the both material. Plastic gains electron, wool lose electron. Final charge on plastic and final charge on wool. A is wrong because it says final charge of plastic neutral. When it has gained electron, how can it be neutral? B gains electron, loses electron, negative because it gains electron, yes. Loses because it is positively, yes. B is right, but let's see the other ones. Loses electron plastic and gets a negatively charged. That's absolutely wrong, because when you lose electron you get a positively charged. In D it says the neutral on the wool, that's wrong as well, so B is the right answer. Which circuit contains a heater and a fuse? This is a symbol of fuse, this is symbol of heater, so that's B. This is thermistor, right? So that's wrong, so you cannot like. A light dependent resistor LDR is to be used in an input sensor for intruder alarm circuit. There is no light on the LDR, the lamp switched on. The resistance of the fixed resistor is less than that of the lamp. Diagram shows this. That should be B. Because if the resistance of the when LDR is going to have no light on it, its resistance will be greater, so the combined resistance will be less than that of the fixed resistor. In 33 it says the potential difference of 4 volt is produced where the current is this resistor. How much energy is transferred during this? So that is equals to VIT 4 into 3 into 10, so that is going to be 120. In 34 it says what are X and Y. X is the south pole because they both should not be the north pole, and Y should be slip rings. That's not split rings. Split rings are in DC motor, and they also are only 2 of them splits together. They are the rings, complete rings, so that's slip rings. In 35 it says diagram shows a loudspeaker that is producing a sound. Student writes 4 sentences about loudspeaker. It is a direct correct. That's wrong. it should always be alternating current, otherwise the coil will not vibrate. The coil only vibrates when the current is in opposite direction and the force is produced on opposite side, right? So the current in the coil produces a change in magnetic field. Yes, that's correct. A force is produced in the coil when the wire is attached to the cone. Yes, it is. The cone spins around due to the force. That's wrong. So only 2 and 3 is right. That's C. A step down transformer changes from this to this. There are a number of turns of primary coil. This how many turns? So you'll apply the formula, which is Vp over Vs is equals to Np over Ns. Vp is given as 240 over 12. This is 600. This is X. So this is 20. E is going to go and divide here. So X is equals to 600 divided by 20. So that's going to be 30. So that's B. Sorry. Alpha particles are directed at thin gold foil. Only a very small portion of the alpha particles are deflected through the very large angles. And the fact about the nuclei of the gold atom is not a conclusion of this experiment. Okay, they are surrounded by mostly empty spaces. That is one of the conclusion, because yes, they are very small. Yes, they contain some of the mass of the atom. That's also yes, most of the mass of the atom. Yes, and they contain proton and neutron. We cannot tell from this experiment that it contains protons and neutrons. In 38, radioactive source emits only gamma radiation is placed in front of the radiation detector, which measures the count rate. What must causes the count rate to increase? A thick sheet of lead placed between the source and detector, that should not increase, that should rather decrease. A strong magnetic field placed between the source and detector, that should also not change anything. The radioactive source move closer to the detector. Yes, that can move further away. That's wrong as well. D. So C is the right answer. Nuclear fission is one of the source of energy. What is the nuclear fusion? Nuclear fusion is one of the source of energy. What is nuclear fusion? The decay of the radioactive nucleus. That's not wrong. Joining together two nuclei to make a large nuclei. Yes, that's correct, but let's see the other one. The melting of unstable nuclei. That's wrong. Splitting of nucleus into two lighter nuclei. That's fission, not fusion. In the last essay, which statement is correct? The orbital speed of the Earth around the Sun is 2 times 2 pi average diameter orbit divided by orbital period. That should be not average diameter, it should be average radius. The orbit of the Earth around the Sun is an ellipse. Yes, that's correct, but let's see the other ones. The Moon takes approximately 1 month to orbit a Sun. No, orbit Earth, not Sun. Light from the Sun takes 5 minutes to reach the Earth. That's wrong as well. So 40B is the right answer. So I hope like you understood this all the questions. If you have any confusion, you can ask me in comments and I can solve every question in detail in which you think you have a problem. See you next video. If you're not subscribed to the channel, go and subscribe to the channel so that you can find our latest video over there. Thank you very much. See you next video. Allah Hafiz.